Thank you for joining us for our weekly Tools for Life virtual edition workshop, part of our Tools for Life workshops offered exclusively and free of charge through Loudon Habitat for Humanity. I'm Tara Jensen, and joining me in just a moment is Josh Kane, President and Head Designer at Kane Landscapes. Today we're discussing playing in the dirt, your lawn and garden questions answered. Josh, how about we jump right into some questions that we feel many of our viewers may be curious about, especially as so many folks are quarantined at home and doing their best to work on projects both inside and out. So let's get started. What tips do you have, maintenance tips for caring for your landscape and backyard plants?
Again, to keep going with it, it's watering is the most important thing. Just like people can only go about 3 days without water until there's serious problems. Plants are not much different. They need water at least once a week. Usually what they could say an hour of water, and the best way to apply it is slowly. So if we don't get a large, long natural rainfall during that week, to set up the sprinkler and set it on a timer or something. People ask, well, what do I set it at? It's hard to say. There's so many different timers. The best way to do it is to set it for a half hour, set a cup out there, mark where an inch is, some cheap plastic cup, and let the sprinkler run. Check it after that hour and see how much water actually fell in it. That's just what we call a rain gauge. It's the easiest way to tell how much that sprinkler is putting out. Okay. Every sprinkler is different. There is no great way. The smaller the droplets and the longer it runs is actually the best way to do it, so that the soil has time for it to soak in, instead of a sprinkler that puts a lot of water out and then it's just running off the surface or running to the edge of the bed where it's not getting to the plants or the turf. So again, the longer the sprinkler can run with smaller droplets that actually have a chance to get absorbed into the soil is the best way. The best time to do it is usually early morning. You don't want to do it at night, because at night it'll sit on the leaves overnight and can cause fungus or disease problems with the plants. But if you can have it water your yard early morning before it gets hot, the best time to do it. Doing it during the day, you might see your plants wilting or having some trouble. You can give it water if you can put it at the base of the plants, but try not to just spray it again with a sprinkler on the plants, because just like for us, that water that's sitting on there acts like a magnifying glass and will actually cause burns in the leaves, or can cause other issues with, again, fungal diseases. So the best time to have it running is usually in the morning, 6, 7. If you don't get up that early, 8, 9 is fine. You just want it to get it to dry off before the sun gets fully into the sky.
Oh, that's great advice, and I'm learning so much. Thank you. So moving a little bit away from the plants, and what tips do you have to create a simple outdoor space? I see you have a beautiful one behind you. So
this is one of our clients. I unfortunately am not sitting in front of this beautiful pool house, but I wish I was on a beautiful day like today. The best thing for your outdoors is really to take the time to think about what you're going to use it for. Okay. We have a lot of clients where if you're in a townhouse, the deck is the most convenient because you're walking out on that same level. It's most convenient. It becomes the easiest, so that if you're cooking a meal in the kitchen and you just want to sit outside and enjoy a nice evening or afternoon, again, it's all about convenience and what you'll actually use. If it's a patio, where's it going to be? Do you want it to be in the shade? Do you want it to be in the sun? If you're building the deck, do you want a space underneath it where you can get out of the sun? But one of the biggest mistakes we see is people just thinking, well, I want all of this, and then they won't use it, or not designing or thinking about how they're going to use it. Again, like this space behind us, they're huge entertainers, so they knew they wanted a big space. They knew that their house is where all the kids congregate and it's where all the friends come over. So again, we designed it to entertain a lot of people. But if you sit there and say, we don't really entertain a lot, it's usually, the 2 of us or the 4 of us, whatever it might be, design the space so it's comfortable for what you're going to use it for. Don't design it for what it might once in a while get used for, because then the rest of the time it's a useless space and it doesn't fit you or feel well. It's kind of like you don't want to design a cafeteria when all you need is your little kitchen, just because you might have the family gathering there, at Thanksgiving once a year. Yeah, it's great to have it work that one time a year, but the rest of the time you feel out of place when you're sitting on a very large area and it's only the 2 to 4 of you. So that's the first thing, is sort of how you're going to use it, how convenient it is to what else you're using in the house, be it, We want the deck because we can walk in and out of the kitchen, and then the other thing is, as I mentioned, where is it in the yard? Is it getting you shade? Is it at the back of your yard, but there's actually a road back there that's creating a lot of road noise? Is it too close to the neighbors who have, their patio right on the other side, and now you feel awkward because you're looking at each other or hearing each other when you want it to be a nice, quiet family time? Or vice versa, do you not want to get too close to the property where you feel you're rude and you're entertaining a lot, and you're right next to their property and you feel out of place? So you just want to think about all those things of how you're really going to use the space and what type of people you are. And then lastly, how does it look for resale? You don't want to design something that's just for you. You always have to be thinking about, will it look good for when you say we're moving on to the next home or next phase in our life? Is it something that somebody else is going to come back there and say, wonderful, I don't need to add this, or wonderful, this makes me feel like I'm at home? So those are the important things to consider when you're designing it. It's really how you're going to use it, how your family is going to use it, how it interacts with the rest of your house, what conditions are around you, be it sun, shade, noise, covered for rain and weather, and then what will happen when you go to resell the house. Is it a good investment? Kind of like the kitchen is obviously usually the best investment as far as return on investment. Landscapes usually has a very high one. A lot of people move into a new house or townhouse and go, oh, it doesn't have a deck. Well, there's an expense that I have to add. So the house is X. Let's go ahead and add this because we know we're going to want a deck. Or does it have a patio? Is it a patio that people are actually going to want to use, or is it just enough to step out on under the deck and you have a garden that's beautiful and people can walk out into? But you want to consider all those things before you even start the project. And again, with a lot of people right now spending a lot of time at home, spend your time on a site like House or Home and Garden and look at what other people have done. And a lot of times they'll tell you sort of a general cost of what those people spent on it or what it costs to furnish that, which is another big thing to consider. As you can see behind me, you can create the space, but now you also have to pay for the furniture or whatever you're going to use on it. So don't forget about that portion too.
I'm definitely waiting for my invitation to that place. But yeah, no, those are great ideas. And it's part of that planning, getting that good planning in place before you take action. So thank you for that. So another big concern in looking at this property behind you is drainage, and creating these spaces and creating the proper drainage. So can you tell me a little bit about some of that proper drainage and why it's important for spaces like this as well as gardens?
I mean, drainage is everything. As landscape architects, that's sort of our first thought is, how is this site draining? Where's the water coming from? Where can we get it to go? How do we keep it away from the house? Nature, as beautiful as it is and as great as it is unforgiving. And the things that destroy more than anything else are water and sun. Not much we can do about the sun. They've come out with a lot of great products that are UV resistant or can withstand being in the sun all the time and don't fade as much, don't warp and crack like wood used to. But water is the one thing that will destroy a house, your landscape. It can, cause all kinds of problems. Obviously, as we talked about earlier, it's what every plant needs, but too much or in the wrong area or concentrated, it becomes a serious problem. So, the basic things we tell with drainage, get it away from the house. So that might mean extending your downspouts, either burying them or just having that splash block and making sure the grade runs away from the house after that. We usually tell people to at least put a 10-foot pipe to get it far enough away that it can't find that soft soil that's still around the house from when they dug the foundation and cause leaks or problems in your basement. The next phase is really making sure everything slopes away and there's nothing preventing the water from leaving that area. We see a lot of people put that garden edging and they'll build a raised bed and it's right by their house. We've kind of created a small dam. So you want to make sure, again, the water can leave, the first 5 to 10 feet away from the house at least, so that hopefully if it's going down into the soil, it's going back into the water table and not finding its way back against your basement walls or your crawl space. Again, water is, call it lazy. Water moves to the easiest space that it can, which is usually wherever there's the most air space. So when water gets into the soil, it's just displacing air and gases, and that's usually right by your house because that's where they've overdug the foundation to either build the blocks or pour the concrete. So again, it's all about getting water away from the house. So if you're adding that patio, you want to make sure that, again, it slopes away from the house. How much? Usually 1 inch for every 8 feet. Some people go a little bit more, but 1 inch for every 8 feet will get the water to run off nicely, and you won't feel it when you're sitting there. It won't cause the table to feel like it's tilted. You won't notice it as you walk across it. So that tends to work. So to remember that 1 inch for every 8 foot will get water to run away at a decent pace and not settle. For your yard, you want to actually do double that. So it's 1 inch for every 4 feet, just because it's not a flat surface, it's not a hard surface. So you want it to run off a little faster. Okay. And again, the biggest thing is to look for those blockages, be it a man-made blockage that you've created or a blockage in your drainage system that's now keeping the water spilling over your gutters and landing right by the base of your house, or it's just something a tree root has grown and now it's causing it to puddle, somewhere in the yard, be it close to the house, or even if it's further away, you don't want it to puddle and cause trouble for that tree later on. The one thing to remember, though, it is against most county regulations to dump your water close to your neighbor's property, be it their fence, their house, their anything. Fairfax County is 10 feet away. I believe Loudon is the same. So if you do bury a pipe, you don't want to direct it right to your neighbors, because technically they can call the county. The county can come out and make you remove that, which makes sense. You don't want to concentrate your water and give your problem to somebody else. So always keep that in mind. Yeah. Yes. You want to run it to somewhere where it's still in your property and isn't causing trouble for you or for a neighbor. And the big thing to remember, if you do put it into a pipe, be it off a downspout or you're collecting it in a catch basin and moving it, is what does it look like when that water comes out? Because now you've taken that water and concentrated it, and it's going to move through that pipe at a faster volume than it would normally over the grass. So you might have to add something like river stone or have some way to slow that water down as it exits the pipe and doesn't just cause some erosion or, again, move your problem of a wet area to a new area that's just heavily wet. And again, you have to think about wherever you're letting that water out, you've now added more water to there. So you want to be careful that you don't let it out near the base of a tree or your plants that you like that don't like too much water. And all you've done is move the problem, and now you're getting it away from your house that the plants didn't like it. And you're bringing it to other plants in your garden that don't want that much water.
Right. Well, Josh, thank you. That's going to solve a lot of people's problems, I think, around this area. I do have some other questions that have come in. I think we're ready to answer some. Are you ready to go with them?
Sip water and I'll be ready.
Okay. All right. So the first question we have is from Sharon. Sharon, thank you for joining us today. So Josh, do you recommend an all-in-one seeding and fertilizing product?
They're convenient. It's kind of like shredded cheese. Is it better? Not really. They've just made it more convenient for you instead of having to get out the block of trees and the shredder and catch your nail on it all the time. It's just easier. There's pros and cons. I mean, they're like anything they make easier, they're charging for it. But again, if you don't have a large property where you need to own your own spreader, it definitely makes sense. What a lot of them have done is which is amazing, they've taken the seeds, which are very small, and they've run them through a processor that coats them in a fertilizer. So as they're in the soil, they've already been fertilized, and the water breaks down the fertilizer, which opens up the seed shell. And then you get germination, and once it's broken down right around where that seed's germinating, the fertilizer's right there. So it's an excellent idea. It's definitely time saving. It's saving you from buying 2 products.
Right.
Is it any better? Not really. But it does prevent you from having to have more items, be it spreaders, buying a bag of fertilizer, which you might not need that much fertilizer, because usually when you buy a bag of fertilizer, it's meant for an entire larger yard. So there's definitely some pros, but they're charging you for the convenience that you're getting from it.
Right. Makes sense. And the portions are right? That would be my concern. But
yes, I mean, again, they've done. I mean, companies, again, if you're buying from a Scott's or Eagle Blend or one of those reputable blends, they've staked their name on it, and I'll use them myself, and some of our managers will, because again, it's easy to carry in a truck where you don't have to carry a bag of fertilizer and a 50-pound bag of seed.
Right.
You have those 10 or 15-pound bags they'll sell it by, so that if we're at a property where everything looks gorgeous, but there's a dog spot or a mower scalped the turf somewhere and we just want to put it down quickly, it's convenient. And It does work, but like I said, is it better? Probably not. But again, you don't have to worry about setting your fertilizer or spreader right and having a spreader and getting it out of the garage and then cleaning out afterwards. So it's a convenience factor, but the cost is significantly more than buying that bag of fertilizer and that bag of seed.
Okay, good to keep in mind. Thank you. Second question from Celesta. Celesta, thank you for joining us today. Josh, when do you recommend pruning, specifically roses and barberry bushes?
Barberries. So second one's easier. The barberries, yeah, hence their name implies they've got barbs all over them. They are sharp. So I recommend having your husband prune those, or your kids, or anybody else besides you. Not only do they have barbs, they do have a little bit of irritant in them. So when they do scratch you, causes them to itch for a while. So obviously wear gloves with those. You can prune those almost any time of year. It's really on those as to keeping them to the size you want. There are different varieties. So there are ones that say very small, and then there's ones like Crimson Pygmies that everyone thought got to 3 feet, and they'll actually get 4 to 5 feet. So you really want to prune those whenever you want. The best time to prune is usually after any plant has flowered. So barberries do flower. They're flowering about now, and then they'll flush out their new growth, and you can cut off the new growth. Won't hurt them. If you're ever taking off more than about a quarter of the plant, you want to do it when the plant isn't going to be in stress. So you can do it in spring, or you can do it in fall. Summer, we don't recommend too much pruning because, again, the plant is really trying to survive. It's trying to find as much water it has, and once you make those cuts, the way it protects itself is it sends out sap, which is a lot of water, and some other sort of enzymes and stuff to sort of heal its wound, just like people do. But you don't want to do it during a stressful time of year, so not during summer. Roses, again, it's going to come down to what type of rose. Is it a true garden rose? Those you're going to be pruning all throughout the year to get them to flower the most. You don't, kind of like a grapevine, you don't want too many stalks because, again, flowering takes the most energy from any plant. So to get those big, beautiful roses like you get on Mother's Day or for birthdays or Valentine's Day, they keep those plants very thin in the sense that they want to force the flowers to be as big as possible and as few branches as possible. Now, if it's on a shrub rose or what they call a carpet rose, which is what everyone sees a lot more these days at malls and at grocery stores, wherever out in the islands where they bloom all summer long and they look like a azalea bush that's blooming all summer with little rose flowers. Those you can prune anytime. Again, you want to prune them after they bloom, which is usually late summer because they'll bloom usually June, July, and into August and then start to fade out into September. But again, every flower, every plant you're going to want to usually cut right after it's done blooming. So like azaleas, rhododendrons, most hydrangeas, again, right after they bloom, so that the plant has a chance to heal while the weather's still good, and then usually will start to form its new buds for next year. You don't want to prune randomly. Things like crepe myrtles, you do prune in wintertime, but if you prune random, you have to worry about cutting off the flowers that it started to develop for the following year. So the easy answer is right after it blooms, as long as it didn't finish blooming in summer.
Great. Thank you. I have one more question. What advice would you give about using mulch to someone who is not a gardener and wants a low maintenance flower bed? I think this is going to be a popular answer.
Sure. The biggest thing with mulch is not putting it too deep because then you're just hurting your plants. There's lots of different types of mulch. True gardeners go with compost, which is by far the best because you're just adding what is going to become topsoil to your garden every year. And it will help slow the weeds because all weeds are looking for is 3 things. They want to be in soil, they want to get some moisture, and then once the light gets them, they're ready to grow. So what mulch is really doing is it's just covering those weed seeds again so that you take away one of those 3 factors that is needed for germination. So compost is by far your best, a little harder to get, and you have to worry about it washing off. It's not as aesthetically pleasing as far as if you're looking for that, that hardwood cover that just looks perfect for a long time. There's pine fines and pine chips and pine bark nuggets, which are the ones that look like little silver dollars size pieces of the pine bark that the tree companies that either make paper or furniture have used all the pine trees. When they shave those off the trunk, another company collects them, runs them through a machine that makes them all the same size, sorts them into different sizes, and then you can buy those. Those are also considered very good for the soil. They last a lot longer than the compost or the double shredded mulch just because it's pine bark, so it doesn't break down as quickly. It hasn't been as shredded as much. so they'll last a little longer. The smaller sizes, what they call pine fines, do not last. That's almost like compost. But again, it's very good for the soil. It's very easy to plant in. It does its job as far as keeping weeds away, but it can wash away in a heavy thunderstorm. And then what you see most often around here is double shredded mulch. That's what you're going to buy at, again, the big box stores, the nurseries, anywhere that you see the big bags. The Boy Scouts are selling and delivering them right now this time of year. That is the standard around here. You want to buy from a reputable source, because a lot of times you'll find that some cheaper companies are shredding things like old wood and pallets and everything else, and you're getting a pallet is made from wood that is usually treated with some type of chemical so it lasts longer. So A, you don't really need that in your garden. B, sometimes you'll find nails and stuff because, again, they're running it through a shredder, and then it runs through a magnet that tries to get most of the nails and plastic out, but it doesn't always. So again, you want to look for a reputable company to buy it from. And the nice thing on that is it tends to last a very long time. It kind of interlocks together so it doesn't just wash away in a heavy rain. But you do have to be careful because it is interlocking together. It can almost make a mat over your plants, and you'll see in heavy rains it kind of just sheds off where you put it down. So make sure you don't put it too thick, and never compact it after you've laid it down. You know, some companies, and we've seen some people, will hit it with the back of a rake or something to make it look perfectly flat, perfectly consistent, but you've almost created a way that water isn't going to soak through there because, you know, it's almost like a woven fiber. It kind of locks together all those long shards, and then you've kind of hurt your garden. So as long as you're just spreading it and evening it out with your hand, it works very well. But be careful as far as tamping it down or if it's in a high traffic area. Now, with the double shredded hardwood mulch, you can get all the colors, and we often get asked, were they safe? It's kind of just an industrial food dye they're adding, so it's perfectly safe. The one thing to consider is you don't want to apply it when there's rain in the forecast. A lot of times when those companies are making it, they're bagging it right after it's made. The mulch sits in a bag, it heats up, it releases moisture. The bag is kind of wet on the inside, and if you put it down and it doesn't have a chance to dry out, that dye doesn't really soak into the wood chips or the shredded wood. So you want to give it some time, and you also usually want to wear gloves because otherwise it'll look like you were drawing with marker and got it all over your hands often. So the double shredded, any of the colors, have your fun with it. It's all safe, again, as long as you're buying from a reputable company. But you do want to make sure you don't put it down right before a heavy rain because sometimes it will wash the dye off it before it's had a chance to truly dry into the mulch itself.
Great. Thank you for all that information. I think this is all the time we've had today. Thank you so much. On behalf of Loudon Habitat for Humanity, I'd like to thank you for joining us today in our Tools for Life virtual edition, an extension of our Tools for Life workshops offered exclusively and free of charge through Loudon Habitat for Humanity. And Josh, I want to give a huge thank you to you for joining us and providing us with this amazing information. There's a lot to walk away with today, for sure.
I hope it's not too much, but I hope everyone gets some good outdoor time this spring and enjoys themselves in the garden. Absolutely.
If you're interested in learning more about the work that Josh and his team does at Kane Landscapes, check out their website at kanelandscapes.com. Please keep in mind Loudon Habitat Restore for any donations that you may have. Although we're not taking donations at this time due to the governor's stay-at-home order, you can set those items aside and we'll schedule a pickup for you later. We take donations of furniture, housewares, working appliances, and building supplies. We'll announce on our social feeds when we plan to start taking donations and scheduling those pickups for free. Again, in the meantime, keep an eye on our Facebook page where we're giving you the opportunity to shop the Restore from home. This is pretty exciting and new, and we're happy to bring this to you. And even though it seems like the world is shutting down, the needs that Habitat meet continue to grow. Your contributions help us fulfill our mission of bringing people together to build homes, communities, and hope. So please visit our website at loudonhabitat.org for more information, ways to get involved. And next week, we'll be meeting with Mike Ponticus at the Sandy Spring Bank Treasury Management Officer, and he's a Habitat board member, and we're excited to have him here talking about stretching your dollar. And I look forward to seeing you then.